Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Just Talking About Sports. I'm Ethan.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Luca.
And Matt, what are we doing today?
Talking about sports.
An interesting change on that tone, but this is
Not a voice here. We gotta try and keep it the best we can.
Okay, I feel you. But this is our 23rd episode, part 2. Since I'm lazy to make it 24, and I want to keep it as basically it's us once again, same day. But we're going to be talking about our favorite sports memories. First one that comes to our mind when you think of sports and a favorite memory, we're going to be talking about it, basically going through what our personal stories and how it begins. But Matt, I'm going to let you start off with your personal favorite story.
All right, so I have had many classic experiences within the last 2 or 3 years or so. There's the whole Saxonville experience, but I can't pick one, so I'm going to save that. I think if I'll remember one thing correctly, and if you've been watching us since the beginning, me and Ethan especially, you'll know about my personal experience with the University of Maryland, Baltimore County Retrievers, also better known as UMBC. Their story began in March Madness in 2018 when they went up against the best college basketball team in the country, Virginia, in the first round. This will forever be, I think, my best memory, especially from my childhood. This is going to be one of my fondest memories ever. It was first half. I'm not watching the game at this point because let's be real. If you're watching March Madness and there are multiple different games on, the last games you're watching are the 1/16s. You just don't care. And so I'm out watching another game. I'm not looking at the top bar for the scores. And all of a sudden it's just halftime, and I look up there. I'm like, I'll humor myself. I'll look at the scores, and then I see that this game is tied, and I'm here like, oh. The game's tied, already in a panic, and I'm like, Mom! We're all big sports fans, my mom, my dad, and my brother, especially for March Madness. And so I ran down there right at halftime started. All 4 of us are just sitting there. I'm like 5 feet away from the TV like this the entire game. And then you just see UMBC up by 3, then up by 7, and you're like, oh my God, this is happening. And then with 3 minutes left, they're up by 20. And you just knew that there was no coming back. It was the greatest moment I think I'm ever going to live for. It was like 116 years or something like that. A 16 seed had never, ever won. And then they come in there, and then not only do they win against the best team in the country, they absolutely dominate them. And it's a shame that they didn't get any further than the first round, because in the same year, Loyola made it to the Final Four, another fun memory of mine. But that UMBC moment will be something I never, ever forget. I can't believe it still happened to this day. And that is one of those that you're never going to forget. It's one of those never going to forget experiences of your life.
I actually got to add something to your memory. Hold on. Sorry about that, Ethan. Let me add something to that. I actually remember that game specifically, and I happened to actually pick that team to beat the number 1 seed that year. And I'm just like, you know what, just for the heck of it, because I hate Virginia, so I'm like, I'm just going to choose them. And I'm like,
I chose Penn over Kansas. I chose a different 16.
Oh, really?
I had it that year. I'm like,
and
this is the year.
And I actually bet money on that. I'm like, you know what? Just for fun, let's say $20 with my friend. I'm like, I'm $20 richer because of this. So yeah, there's my experience with that.
That's crazy.
Yeah. See, personally, I'm compared to you gaining money, I lost money because of it, because I bought a sweatshirt just for the occasion, just because it was such a great memory.
Man, respect.
I know. Me and Matt have just talked about it so many times. I mean, I had a similar memory with Matt where I was literally kind of just sitting up in my room watching the Gonzaga game. I wasn't paying attention to anything. So my dad calls me down to go watch this game because apparently Virginia's losing. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And of course, guess who had Virginia winning this year that year basically, 2018.
Oh,
I did because I guess I didn't do as much research, and
I didn't.
My bracket was completely obliterated after that day. It was
still won my pool, even though Virginia got knocked out in the first round.
Yeah, which personally, at first, I did not care. Because anybody who watches sports understands the significance of that game, because if you're watching March Madness, I mean, me and Matt probably watch it more than you, Luca, and probably more than anyone else, especially more than anyone else, especially this year. If you saw any of our previous podcasts, we literally did AP of the NCAA AP board or breakdowns, but the significance of that game was just unbelievable. Watching the Amoras hit those amazing threes. I mean, just the team did not look like they were an NCAA team. They just looked like a bunch of YMCA players that got together and all of a sudden are being the best team. Like what Matt didn't mention is they were literally the number one. They were not just no number one. They were the best number one team. Like they were, because there's 4 number one seeds. They were the number one, and that puts it on top because not only did they beat a 1 seed, they beat the best 1 seed to ever play. And eventually, I mean, Virginia got their revenge the next year as they got to win their championship. But having the UMBC have that just amazing win will just forever stay in my memory, and we will never forget where we were sitting on that date.
You know the mythical tale of David versus Goliath? That is literally the David versus Goliath example that you can pull up. You thought it was impossible for a 16 seed to win? Yeah, just go back and watch that. The Davids took down the Goliaths in dominating fashion, and I think that is just one of the coolest moments because I'm a big fan of the underdog. I loved that so much.
I love just sitting through those things, but I don't think anyone else has anything to add further. Just keep showing our praise toward those UMBC achievers. I know I've attempted to try and go find some memorabilia of that, but it's cost too much, so don't need to spend any more money on UMBC merch. But I'll move on to my sports memory, my favorite one, which is kind of a little bit more different. It's more recent too, just with yours. I mean, nobody really knew because it was just such a wild thing. It didn't really matter in the end. The team didn't really win a championship because of it. It was just kind of like one random time that it happened. So if you guys don't know what you guys were doing, December 9th of 2018, also the same year as UMBC, but December 9th, just a random week. It was like a week 16 or 17 game. The Dolphins were already knocked. The Miami Dolphins, basically my Miami Dolphins, were knocked out of the playoffs already. They didn't really matter. They didn't, technically they weren't knocked out, but they were basically on the bubble. They had no real chance of making it. And they go up against New England, the Patriots, Big Brady. And I'm pretty sure this is one of the years they won the Super Bowl, I believe, when they basically the Super Bowl Patriots that they made it. But nobody really knew that the Patriots and come to Miami, and it was a surprising close game throughout the entire time. I remember the Dolphins literally picked up this no-name running back out of from New England. He was a former New England running back. He had never played a single week. I can't think of his name at the moment, but I'll quickly pull up the stats. But
wow, you're a real Miami fan.
Oh, trust me, I didn't even know who he was until they started playing him. He scored 2 rushing touchdowns, one of those being a 7-yard touchdown. This game was not even supposed to be close for any people that cared, because I'm pretty sure New England was favored to win by 20 in this game. And at halftime, when it was a close game, people were starting to scratch their heads like, wait a minute, this might be a little scary scene. And eventually it got tied up it was tied up with a good 14 seconds left as the Patriots did their usual magic where Brady drove all the way down and they kicked Gostkowski made the field goal. As the only reason why basically Miami was still in it is because Gostkowski missed the previous extra point during the game. But it was just unbelievable. And then it goes, there's 14 seconds left. The Patriots kick it off and it goes all the way to the back. The Dolphins try and make something of it. They only basically get to the 20-yard line. It's 7 seconds left in the game, and fans are leaving the building. Everybody's walking out. The New England fans, all in the stands, are chanting, laughing at all the Dolphins fans, saying that they lost again. Which usually Miami wins these types of games, because New England, for those who don't know, can't win in New England, because out of all the different teams, Miami has beaten New England. I'm pretty sure in the last 6 years they beat them 5 out of the 6 times in Miami, which is surprising to some people, but it's a fun little stat for us Dolphins fans, a fun little kicker towards those screw the Boston Patriot fans. But going back to the games, the fans were all basically laughing. The New England fans were laughing at the Dolphins fans because it was basically over. And then they had 7 seconds left on the clock, and apparently they had the play scripted, but Tannehill had his whole thing where he hikes the ball, throws it right away to Devontae Parker. He catches it, laterals it to Kenny Stills. Kenny Stills is just looking all over the place like, where am I supposed to throw the ball? And then he ends up lateraling it to Kenyon Drake. And for those who don't know, Bill Belichick, being his mastermind and his little show-off person, decided to put in Gronkowski as a safety in case Tannehill was just going to launch it from like the 20-yard line, which they still would not have been able to pull off a Hail Mary like that, but they still put it in for the fun of it. Turns out that ends up to bite them in the butt, as Kenyon Drake, once he gets the ball, he does his little lateral thing and all of a sudden has an open lane and runs on the sideline. And the only person that has a chance to stop him is, wouldn't you know it, number 87, Gronkowski, who's trying to cut him off towards the end zone and ends up like stumbling, takes a weird step and fumbles, and magically this picture right here that I have signed ends up happening, where Gronkowski's on the floor as Kenyon Drake runs into the end zone as time is ticking off, and the Dolphins
That's a classic Ethan photo.
The literal best play in the last decade, if I could even think of a play in Dolphins history and NFL history. Because who would have thought that the chances of that even happening were just absolutely like zero, like 0 point something zero. There was no way the Dolphins were going to win, but they were able to pull it off, and it was just one of the greatest moments I think ever as a Dolphins fan, at least from my era. I mean, I'm not a Dan Marino perfect skull person, but from my era, this is like the greatest thing to happen. And the best part about all this, like the cherry on top, was that when I was watching this whole thing happen, my happened to have my friend at my house because we were watching NFL Red Zone, and wouldn't you know it, he's a New England Patriots fan, a big Brady guy, and he was sitting there kind of laughing at me that the Dolphins lost the game, and I was all sad thinking, oh shoot, it's already over. And then magically they showed it, and I was running in circles around my house laughing and just cheering as loud as I can, jumping as high as I can, even though my ceiling is very, very short. But it was just such a great moment for me. That's one of my peaks as like memories that I have. First thing comes to mind for my sports memory.
I gotta say, both of your sports memories are very different and very personal, so I like that. While your guys is not Chicago, mine is Chicago. As you guys notice, my favorite sports memory, look behind me, is the poster and then my shirt. There you go. There's a huge hint. All right, so let's start with this. Game 7 of the World Series moved to the bottom of the 9th with the score tied 6-6. Cubs closer back then, Aroldis Chapman, very distraught and weary. He returned to the mound at Progressive Field back in Cleveland. Miguel Montero was his catcher because David Ross and Wilson Contreras have been used earlier in the game. Montero has only caught 2 games in the past 32 days. Very rusty. Top of the Indians lineup was up. Carlos Santana, Jason Kipnis, Francisco Lindor. Chapman was poor at throwing runners out. Montero was poor at throwing. So that means if only one Cleveland Indian got on base, it's over, basically. Chapman had thrown 83 pitches in the past 3 games over 4 days, plus probably the approximately, I would say, 60 pitches he threw warming up in 8 different innings. He entered the game in the 8th inning, blew a 6-3 lead, and now he fell behind Santana 3-1. And I became worried as I'm watching this with my friend. If he walks him, noise is going to get too loud in the wrong direction. Chapman, I remember, threw one of his worst fastballs of the night. And somehow Santana did not swing, and he took it for a strike. And before you knew it, it's full count. Slider that did not bite and stay in the middle of the plate. Went far left field, but it was caught. Next was Jason Kipnis. Kipnis has always been a Cub killer. He's on the Cubs right now. Thank God the foul ball that he hit went far left field foul, because if not, this would be the same guy that grew up in Chicago, now in the Cubs, and that destroyed the Cubs' hopes. So that would have not been good at all. As I keep watching bottom of the 9th, Chapman keeps showing fatigue, diminished velocity. His slider was not being able to be tilt. So I'm like, this better end soon. And before you knew it, bottom of the 9th inning finally happened. And of course, like any other Cubs nightmare, rain. Rain, rain, rain. It's about, I would say, 12:30 on a school night. And I'm like, I can't go to bed now. This is Game 7 of the World Series. Cubs have not won for 108 years. I'm not going to sleep, period. And my friends started getting all tired. I'm like, you're either a Cubs fan or you're not a Cubs fan. Pick one. And I remember them covering the field, but luckily rain delay wasn't too far. If you're a Cubs fan, I'm sure you've heard of the rain delay speech by Jason Hayward, but whatever he said in that locker room, they came out of the locker room feeling way different. They were fired up. And when they went into the dugout, they looked like a team that basically was, we're done. Whatever's going to happen is going to be bad, yada, yada. But I got to say, when Kyle Schwarber went up to bat first thing in the 10th inning, that was, I believe, his 17th at bat since returning from torn ligaments in his left knee, slammed a loud single. He's on first base, punching the fist in the air. One man, no outs. Next, you got Chris Bryant smacking a very far ball that went into center field. And Almora pinched run for Schwarber. Very smart center fielder he is. He was able to track it very easily. Tags from first, sprints to second. Only one out, someone in scoring position. Rizzo, he was initially walked. Zobrist then, the smart man he is, nails one down the third base line. Before you know it, it's 7-6, I'm sorry. And to stop this from keep going on, I'm going to go to the bottom of the 10th just to make this a little shorter. Carl Edwards Jr., he comes in the bottom of the 10th, gets 2 quick outs by striking out Mike Napoli and retiring Neil Ramirez on a grounder. Now, the very hard part was to end the 100-year 8 drought. And then all of a sudden, Carl Edwards Jr. lost the strike zone. He walked Brandon Geyer on 5 pitches, 4 of them well below the strike zone. And then he next pitches to Rajai Davis, the one that basically erased the Cubs' lead. I would say he hit another ball, and that was able to advance Geyer to second base. Then Rajai Davis was able to nail it to center field, and that scored Geyer. It's 8-7. Then basically Edwards' night was over, and then finally, before you know it, Mike Montgomery comes in, throws his 8 practice pitches. Not a single of them was a strike. So I'm getting really nervous just watching this. I have anxiety like you won't believe. He throws a curveball for his first pitch, low strike. Okay. Second one, he throws another one. Before you know it, Martinez swung, topped a slow ground ball to the left of the mound. The next 4 seconds were basically a studying how many thoughts how many thoughts a human mind can process within a short period of time. Bryant, charging between the mound and third base, fielded the ball after a third bounce, and the arm that's been cramping all night. Just as his plant foot landed and his arm came around, the throw looks like it was going to be off target, and then Rajai Davis was going to tie the game. But luckily enough, it was on target, baby. And the Chicago Cubs erased their 108-year championship drought. How about that for a story?
Yeah, I'll beat Matt to the plate. Oh, look at this baseball analogy. But compared to Matt, I am also a Cubs fan. That's one of the few, or basically only, sport I've stayed loyal to from Chicago for any other sport, because obviously I'm a Dolphins fan and I am a Ducks fan. But that's besides the point. But just this day is just one, like, it is the literal best game 7 in MLB history, best game for Chicago sports history. It's just one of the greatest games to ever happen. 108 years is a lot. That is more than a century old. For a team to win a championship is unbelievable. From the Billy Goat, from the Bartman incident, from all the different curses that they had, all the excuses, all the failures, all the times, it finally ended there. It was just such a relief. And just sitting there watching, I remember especially that home run that you were talking about in the, basically, I'm pretty sure it was like the ninth
inning. Yes.
The eighth. The amount, like, I bet you everyone in Chicago, their hearts sank. Just sitting watching LeBron celebrate like this is just the worst feeling anybody can get. I instantly, every Chicago fan had one thought in mind, is like, are the Cubs going to blow it again? Nobody thought positively. I can guarantee you, nobody
exactly. I thought negative basically the whole time because of
we thought it was over. We thought it was over, and then finally they get to their thing, and we see Bryant smiling, and then does his little play where he saves it, and Cubs finally win the World Series, there were fireworks everywhere. People were celebrating. People were taking days off the next day of school after watching this. It was just such an amazing thing, and just being able to have a relief and just all the fun stuff. Unfortunately, for the Cubs parade, I didn't get to go to it because I ended up choosing to go to school compared to all my other friends. But I didn't get to be part of, literally, for those who didn't really recognize it at the time, it was literally the 7th largest gathering in human history.
And I'd also like to add the fact that they won the World Series. They were down 3-1 in that series.
That is
They
true.
were down 3-1.
So
and I'm like,
you.
and I'm just sitting here. I was just basically sitting here, like, I'm just praying for hope. That's all I want. I just need something to look forward to.
Yeah,
I would not declare myself a Chicago sports fan. I'm not a Cubs fan. The only Chicago sport that I am a fan of is the White Sox, which is a crazy thing.
All right, I'm going to give some credit to the White Sox because I definitely like where they're heading. I really do. They are going to definitely be more entertaining than the Cubs this season, sadly. But,
most likely,
as long as I can watch something entertaining this summer, count me in.
Here's the thing, too, that I just want to point out is the White Sox. I'm the White Sox fan, and whatever that is what it is. But you cannot help but root for the Cubs in that situation. 108 years. It is something that I am not a Chicago sports fan. If Bears win a Super Bowl, I'm just going to cry in a corner. But that whole Cubs thing was so cool. Just to see something where sports was on the front pages for weeks here. Like, that's not something you see with Chicago sports because we normally suck. But that's not something we normally see here. And it was super cool to see the Cubs win 108 years. That is definitely one of the best sports moments of all time that we've at least been alive for and that we can at least comprehend. Yeah. I think that is a perfect way to finish what was a great segment here today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no really, as a Chicago sports fan, there's no other day you could probably think of. I mean, other than a few of maybe the Hawks celebrations when they won a few championships, or
I don't think that even matches up to that.
Your Super Bowl shuffle win that you guys had, but but no one for us in our generation, we weren't alive for that. So this will be one of the few things that stick with us as Cubs fans and sports fans in general, because we witnessed history in the Cubs ending their basically their longest drought in sports, and I believe in any other sports history. So
something else that gets to me when I got to see that on TV with my friend, another thing is there are people that live to, I don't know, 102, let's say. They never got to see one. 102 years of age you lived to and never saw one. We were freshmen in high school. Imagine just imagine that.
It's crazy.
We're spoiled.
Yeah, we're spoiled.
I would not consider us to be spoiled considering what we're doing right now. But, we've had our moments. How's that? Our generation has had their moments.
Correct.
Because we've all talked about teams not from Chicago. Except for the Cubs. But besides the Cubs.
It's not a Chicago sports fan, It is what it is. At least I've chosen the right path.
That's what happens when organizations don't really work out as well. But that's beside.
Chicago, everybody.
Yeah.
Woo!
But that's gonna conclude our 3 favorite sports memories that we had. First ones that come to mind. We have plenty of other ones that we could share, maybe in a part 2 series if we ever want to do that again and share our next favorite ones. I know Matthew's definitely got one up his sleeve since he didn't get to talk about his Jaguars. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed all this. Make sure you guys subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you guys next time.
Peace.